Last night something incredible happened to me. But to know what incredible happened, you first have to know about something else. There's a book of Kabbalah. Hasidic people don't like when you call their books Kabbalah, but the problem is they were Kabbalists, and it's not fair not to give them credit for being Kabbalists. That's like if you say a Hasidic rabbi or a Kabbalist, who do you think is holier? Normally you think like the Kabbalist is up in the clouds. So he was a Hasidic Kabbalist. His name was Rabbi Yonatan Halevy. And he was from? Slonim. He was the Slonim Rebbe. Alav Shalom was a big tzaddik. My wife is an expert in a lot of his books and his teachings. He wrote a book called the Netivot Shalom, a series of books called the Pathways of Peace. And it's actually the moment in my history where I felt very burnt out and upset with Hasidut. It was the Slonim Rebbe's books that brought me back on board. And I read his books and I felt, it's not mine, it's not my road, but it's such a sweet path. It's a beautiful, gorgeous, it's like sweet. His books, I can only tell you, it's like eating honey, so yeah, you can't read it all the time because it's too sweet for you, but it's a very sweet approach to Judaism. And is someone at the door? Yes. Oh, okay. So, good morning. The Netivot Shalom dedicates a lot of his writings, most of them in the book of Shemot, to discuss the impurity of Egypt and how the Jewish people not just couldn't exist physically in Egypt, but it was very hard for them spiritually in Egypt. It was a tough place. They were in a mentality of servitude. They were in a mentality of slavery. They were in a mentality of exile. And whatever accomplishments they could reach were very limited by the physical location in which they were at. The Hasidic masters are famous for saying that Mitzrayim is not a place. Egypt is not a place. The word Mitzrayim is the same letters as the word Mitzarim, which are narrow straits or boundaries, gvulot. Yeah. Mina Mitzar Karati, I reach out to you.
But Egypt has the Mitzar.
Yeah, right. Also, very nice. The canal, Suez Canal, is called Mitzar. Now, an additional idea, you find Moshe Rabbeinu. If anybody's cold, close the windows. I just open them for air, but it's up to you. Moshe Rabbeinu, he keeps going to pray. Remember, he meets with Paro. Then he has to always go pray. Whenever he prays, the Torah says, "Vayitzei mechutz la'ir." He always has to leave the city where Paro is at. The commentaries tell us he leaves Egypt proper and he goes to a neighborhood called Goshen. Yes. Goshen was a.
That's great. Thank you.
Goshen was a place in Egypt where the Jews lived. It was like the Jewish ghetto of Egypt. Goshen, Eretz Goshen. That was the only place he could pray. And the rabbis tell us that the reason why he could pray there, Egypt was so putrid of a place, it was so infused with evil, with bad, with rotten values, that he wasn't even able to reach the right level of consciousness to pray in that place. He had to physically leave Egypt in order to pray. There are many such places in the world. You find yourself in a place that is so not conducive to a life of spiritual growth, of involvement, of thought. I used to have a blog. What?
He took a bite of that banana. I don't know how much he can put in his mouth.
It's pretty impressive.
Obviously he can.
I used to write a blog from Jerusalem. It was called New Thoughts from an Old City. I moved to America. I switched the blog. I wasn't living in the old city anymore. Those are New Thoughts from a New City. I just left the blog alone. I opened up RabbiYoni.com. I was writing some more. I got my first job as a rabbi and I stopped writing. I got married. Something came back. I can't write just, you tell me to write about something. I can't write. It has to come from my heart. If it doesn't come from my heart, I've written many pieces, written them up, and then deleted them or ripped them up and thrown them in the garbage. If it doesn't come from the right place, then it's not worth ever putting out into the world.
Correct.
The Kotzker Rebbe was famous for saying, not everything you think you should say. Not everything you say you should write down. Not everything you write down you should publish. That's some people, whatever they think they publish, they put in books and they spread it to the whole world. Thank you.
Anybody else want tea?
I made it for
You
you.
made the tea. Perfect.
I wrote my book, Yehi Shalom. I wanted that on purpose.
You want it on purpose?
Yeah. I wrote my
For the whole
book,
class?
Yehi Shalom. I'll take care of it.
Okay.
And
I'm ready to put this over here.
when I started writing, it was like all the gates opened, and I just was writing. I just now edited the book for a second printing, which we're putting out. And I don't have any more copies of Yehi Shalom to give out. I have my copy and the edited copy, which was butchered by Marlene and Rachel. So between the two of them, I couldn't ever show it to somebody. It's too embarrassing. I was going through. I said, I didn't write this book. Did I write this book? I couldn't believe the amount of things that I put in a book. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when He decides you're ready for something, you're ready for something. I've been trying to write. I have on my phone notes for about 5 different books that I'm planning to write. And I keep writing notes. Every time I see something, I say, for this book, look in that other book on page so-and-so. When it comes time to write the book, look it up. And for a while, I was working on a second volume of Yehi Shalom, Jewish Law of Kashrut, and then I put it on the shelf. I was working on a different book, I put it on the shelf. And there was one book that I've been planning to write for a long time. And I just, it's too much that I need to put into writing. I wasn't ready to do it. Last night, for whatever reason, 10 o'clock at night, I got hit by this burst of inspiration. I told my wife, I know I promised Sunday night, it's winter break, I'm going to hang out with you. Whatever. My Yetzer Hara says I have to sit down and write. And so I took out my computer, I started taking out my books, and Baruch Hashem, till 7 o'clock in the morning, I wrote the first whole section of the new book. The book, I don't know what the exact title is, but the idea behind it is Hitna'ari me'afar kumi, is shake off the dust and arise. It's a book about 10 or 12 personalities that have been lost in the dustbins of Jewish history. Their life, their writings, their philosophies, they're from around the world. Sephardic, Ashkenazi, Yemenite, Hasidic, personalities of the Jewish world today, wishes you had never heard of. And B'ezrat Hashem, my desire is to bring them back into the world and to show that nobody's crazy. There are ideologies and philosophies that sit really well with you. They make Judaism feel really good, and people have willfully edited them out of history. And so B'ezrat Hashem, we're not going to let it happen, and we're putting it back down in paper. So B'ezrat Hashem, that was the...
If you wouldn't have written it, it would have gone out of your mind.
It's true. I've been writing the notes, and Baruch Hashem, if it wasn't for the fact I had to pray when the sun rose, I would have just left. I kept writing, Baruch Hashem. So I ask you to daven for me. Pray for me that I keep writing, because this book needs to come. B'ezrat Hashem.
For sure. In English, you're writing it.
It's in English. No worry. It's in English. I'm translating. I'll tell you, in this book, I'm translating things that I don't think have ever been written in Hebrew, let alone translated into English. So B'ezrat Hashem, that's the first personality I'm dealing with is Rabbi Yosef Mosas, who wrote. This is some of the books that he wrote. There are about another 15 books that I don't have right here on the table, but this is what I got to yesterday, just from a preliminary understanding of his life. You have to know that if you have an inspiration in life to do something, just do it. That's my request from you. Don't let it stay here. It says in the books of Kabbalah, you have to take it me'akoach el ha'po'al. You have to take it from potential and actually use the energy. So, Baruch Hashem, we should all do it in our own capacities. That being said, we've been discussing for a long time women in the study of Torah. And actually, Rabbi Yosef Mosas, the next chapter I'm writing about, is his approach on women and studying Torah. A fascinating concept for a rabbi who sat in Morocco to write about such a thing. Maybe I'll read to you. We ended off last week with the story of the Ben Ish Chai.
Yes.
I want to begin this week with the story that he wrote. I don't have the book. I only have photocopies of the book. Let me read it to you from my notes, this following story. Rav Noach Berezovsky, the Slonim Rebbe.
I have taken my husband to ask me a question this Friday.
Noach
He says, what do you think of
Berezovsky.
Can women get sniffer? Just last week.
Is it in English?
They've actually translated parts of it. Before you have part of the Netivot Shalom in English?
I know. Richard was fascinated. Let's get to come and talk to Rabbi.
Yeah, with some stipulation.
Yeah, but of course, I mean, but you know, my husband, Rocco, you've been here with your his best friends, and you know, you're very been through it.
That blue folder on top of there, I think it has papers for today.
Yeah.
Okay. This is some of his books in
The
English.
top one is translated by two people who learned his works. It's geared for teenagers, but it's a masterpiece. The second one is really word-for-word translation of his works.
So he wrote many, and he wrote to show them as a group of books?
Yeah.
Sure, it's a whole series of books.
So
So these are like selected writings they've taken from his books.
okay.
Rabbi Yosef Masas was giving a speech. It says, Rabotai, my ladies and gentlemen, בשבת זה, this Shabbat, בסייעתא דשמיא, with Hashem's help, אמרתי להמשיך עוד בפירוש מאמר התנא הקדוש רבי מאיר, זכותו יינתן אמן. I want to continue explaining the teachings of Rabbi Meir. Wait a second, I have the book, Baruch Hashem. Taf Mem Bet.
Yo, this is a blue folder.
Yeah, are there random papers floating around in there? Is that Rabbi Chaim David Halevy's Dat Medina? I have another such in the other room. Rabbi Chaim David Halevy. It has random papers floating in there. 1 second, I might actually be in luck. While you're already coming from the other room, on the table there's a set Nachalat Avot, volume 6, Chelik Bet. It's Vav Chelik Bet.
You have it.
So I need both Chelik Vavs actually.
No, there's no two. Have your Dalet Heg Zayin Hashem.
And look on the shelf where your Chassidus books are. I need speech Taf Mem Bet if you can. It's going to be whatever's after volume 6.
What page?
I'm looking for essay Taf Mem Bet. These books were just reprinted for the first time in 40 years. And I saw them in New York. I asked the guy how much they cost. Twice the price they cost in Israel. But I said, if they waited 40 years to reprint them, I'm not waiting till you lower your price. I just bought them and had them shipped here. I didn't know I had these books now that I'm quoting from.
Is this, do you buy them through online with through
Random booksellers that know where to get the good stuff.
I have a question. None of the books are now on Kindle, are they?
These books are my books.
All books.
Some of these books are. Oh, thank you very much.
Okay.
Wow.
You done?
Are on Kindle?
You done? You got 9. You got 9 inside.
They are on Kindle. There's a website called HebrewBooks.org. And this book has PDFs of tens of thousands of books.
They're all in Hebrew.
Some in English, actually. Some out-of-print English books. Jewish English books.
Mm-hmm.
But Hebrew books, for example, if you want to look up a Shulchan Aruch in its original printing, you don't have to go to the library anymore. You could just go to this website. It's free. You look up, you choose the year, you choose which, printed in Vienna, printed in Livorno, printed wherever you want, and a photocopy of the whole book comes up.
What?
And you could just go for free through the pages.
You can't
It's called
order it?
HebrewBooks.org. I use it, whatever book I don't have on my shelf, that's the first place I go.
What were these smoking thing for 40 years? What's the reason?
He's one of the rabbis they chose to bury in the dustbins of Jewish history.
He's one of them that they chose.
They chose to bury.
They chose to.
Okay.
Rabbi Yonatan Yosef writes about him that you're not allowed to study his books,
Why?
Why?
So he was also one of them.
Why?
unfortunately.
And
Listen, not for nothing. Let's say not for nothing. He challenged the envelope. He was pushing the borders of where orthodoxy stopped and non-orthodoxy began. He pushed hard. He was posek, but from the old Sephardic genre of if it's true, I don't care what you think about me. And it didn't do everybody well. And it's ironic because I believe Talmud Ovadia tried to do the same thing.
That's correct.
But this kind of Sephardic rabbi makes... So you're trying to keep up an image in the world of Sephardic people look like this, they talk like this, they dress like this. Suddenly he comes along and he sounds like some cute, naive rabbi from Morocco. It looks bad for you. And so you try to just put them on the wayside. That was, I understand the political aspect of it, but it was a tragic mistake. Yes.
It's interesting that you're saying from political. So if a rabbi, in the old days, or maybe even today, if he was against the establishment, they buried him.
No, not always. Only recently has there been such an establishment.
Only recently
Yeah.
there's an establishment?
It used to be that what the establishment was. Who could bury you? Who could decide you weren't a rabbi?
500 years ago, 600 years ago.
There wasn't a central.
The time of the Rambam. There was no establishment then.
Look, they tried to bury him,
Correct.
but there was another establishment that was for him.
Rabbi Uziel.
Well, there's a whole other world of rabbis that didn't care that they were burning his books in France. At the same time, the Rambam became enemy number one in some communities. He became rabbi number one in some communities. So you find there was no establishment, mainstream. There was no such thing as a
There
mainstream.
was no mainstream.
The idea that today you have a mainstream Judaism is a ridiculous concept.
So today you do have that.
Sure,
Is it also kind of political?
only political.
So it's got
But
nothing
it's-
to do with religion, it's
It's
political.
never, no, it's always marketed as religion.
Correct.
But it's truly political.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll say the truth. I can't lie to you. Let me tell you the truth.
thank
If
you.
yes, we only fight over holy things. I wish I could tell you. I wish. So he has an interesting question. It says Rabbi Meir Balanes. This is very relevant to our topic. Rabbi Meir Balanes writes on the Mishnah, Kol ha'osek b'Torah lishma. Thank you for finding this for me. Anybody who... It's incredible to be married to a Torah scholar, you know? Anybody who studies Torah...
Can I move the books now?
No, okay, you can put them on the side and I'm going to ask for them back.
Okay.
But none of us side, please.
Okay.
Maybe I'll bring a chair right
Okay,
here.
that's a good idea. I'll bring a chair. 'Cause then
Anyone who studies
we can't see you then.
Rabbi Yosef Masas in his book Nachalat Avot, it's an 8-volume commentary on Pirkei Avot. And incredible things that you won't find anywhere in the world. It was I've been going through these pieces, and every time I read, I'm like, how can you go to sleep? You didn't finish this book yet. How can I go to that? I didn't read that book yet. How can you? Don't worry, but it comes time to go to sleep, I never feel guilty. There's Kol ha'osek Torah b'Torah lishma. Anybody who studies the Torah in depth, not lishma. Lishma means for the sake of studying Torah. They don't do it. Some people study Torah because they want to walk into a room and everybody should stand up for them. Some people want to study Torah because they need that title of rabbi on the wall. Some people study Torah because they want the ladies in the synagogue that when they go to a class, all the ladies should look at them and say, oh, I know this much. You know those people. Sometimes the people come to a class, not in our group, thank God, but people go to a Torah class and they talk more than the teacher talks. The reason is they spend the whole class trying to show everybody else how much they know. When the whole point of the class was to learn, not to be impressed by anybody or offend anybody. He says, anybody who studies the Torah just for the sake of studying Torah, Zocher Dvarim Harbeh, will merit many, many things. And this is a good question. Why does it have to say, Kol, everyone who studies Torah for the sake of heaven? Why can't it just say, those who study Torah for the sake of heaven? Why does it have to say anyone? Why does it have to say everyone? What is the word Kol coming to include? They must include more people than just what would meet the eye. So, he says first he brings off that the word Kol comes to include those who love Torah so much, but because of their business, their work, their life of maintaining a home, of sustenance, they're not able to study as much. He's saying Kol, anything that you're able to do when it comes to the sake of learning Torah, will merit you many things. I mean, just the fact that you want to study Torah, and that when you have a chance you do study Torah, it's as if you're always studying Torah. That desire to learn is included in the word Kol. He said, but he has a different pshat. He said, he didn't see it in a book. He said, Onira, it appears to me, Sheba milat Kol, the word Kol comes, Larbot et anashim, to include women. Not just men, in the mitzvah of studying Torah. Even though they're not obligated like men in the study of Torah. If they will learn Torah, not because they're feminists or not because they want to be a woman clergy member. They study Torah because they truly want to study Torah. They want to connect to Hashem through His writings. The Rabbi Meir Balanes is saying they also will merit so many great things. Kmo Dvorah v'Chulda, like the prophetesses.
Like his wife.
Like his wife. Shezachul in Vuah mipnei chokhmatan v'tzidkatan. Like very good. Rabbi Meir Balanes' wife was a big Torah scholar. He said these prophetesses, these prophetesses reached high levels because they studied Torah for the sake of studying Torah. Dvorah didn't wake up in elementary school, not her. It didn't wake up in elementary school and say, I want to be a prophetess. I just want to show all those other ladies what a lady can accomplish. I want to show that male prophet that I'm better than him. She woke up out of a sincere desire to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and before she knew it, Hashem chose her to be the prophet of her generation. But that came from a desire of purity, a pure place. V'chen Ima Shalom, there was a lady called Ima Shalom. I just married a couple. The girl's name was Ima Shalom.
Really?
Yeah, she's from a Bukharian family. Her name is Ina.
Oh.
And her name was Ima Shalom. And actually, the reason was, I don't know if you know much about Bukharian Jewry, but the grandparents of almost any Bukharian Jew you know were very holy people. Even they are holy. I'm not saying they're not holy. But the grandparents was like a generation of untouched religiosity, very passionate religious Jews. Many Torah scholars were in Bukhara. And
they all live in Uzbekistan.
Yes, so when she was born and they named her by the Torah, so they said Ina, and the grandfather said, what kind of name is Ina? That's a Russian name. Ima Shalom sounds the same thing. So they named her Ima Shalom. Now, you probably don't know anybody else in the world named Ima Shalom. It means mother of peace.
Yes.
Ima Shalom is a famous Talmudic personality. Her righteousness surpasses volumes of but she's a legend in the Talmud of a woman who was completely righteous from head to toe. And actually, they had gone to many different rabbis before, and they said, "Oh, what's the name Ima Shalom? Oh, it's a boy's name mixed with a girl's name. It's not really a Jewish name, but okay, it sounds Jewish." Like all kinds of people, they came to my table. I said, "Ima Shalom, you know Ima Shalom? Ima Shalom." I took out the Talmud. Look at this person. It was an incredible thing. Ima Shalom, this is about her. Ishto shel Rabbi Eliezer. She was the wife of Rabbi Eliezer, v'achoto shel Rabban Gamliel, and she was the sister of Rabban Gamliel. It's very interesting to me. Who was the one who said that women should study Torah? Was it Rabbi Elazar or Rabbi Eliezer? Do you remember? Can I see this, please? No, Rabbi Elazar. Forget it. My theory went down the window. There was a Bruria who was the daughter of Rabbi Chananiah ben Teradion, and she was the wife of Rabbi Tarfon. Also the daughter of Rashi, הייתה כותבת, she would write, וחותמת שאלות ותשובות בשם אביה, she would write many letters, halachic responsa, in the name of her father. She was considered a halachic authority. וכן אחותו חיlit, and Rashi's sister, her name was Chilit, she would also write halachic responsa. וכן Miriam, Eshet Rabbi Tarfon, Miriam, who was the wife of Rabbi Tarfon. וחנה, אחותו של Rabbi Yitzchak bar Menachem, there was a woman who was Chana, she was the wife of the Tosfot. ועוד הרבה, and there were many other ladies. And he gives you a reference. Look at all these ladies that study Torah for the sake of studying Torah. But it's not for that. For that, you could have just put into your Google search famous Talmudic personalities who were women. You want to see something that only Rabbi Yosef Massas would write about and would make other rabbis squirm in their chair a little bit, is that he was a historian. And as a historian, he traveled throughout when he was a rabbi in Morocco. He lived in Algeria. He was the rabbi for 17 years. When he was 31, he was appointed as the rabbi of Algeria. And he then became the chief rabbi of Haifa. He was asked by David Ben-Gurion to be the chief rabbi of Haifa. That's how well sought out of a personality he was. David Ben-Gurion came to Haifa personally to beg him to take the job as chief rabbi because he didn't want somebody else to take the job of chief rabbi. He was like the elders of the original Sephardic rabbis in Israel. So he writes that he saw in a handwritten manuscript in Algeria. ראיתי ספר כתב יד כי בעיר אלג'יר. He said in the city Algier, בימי הגאון מהורי עייש, in the days of Rabbi Yehuda Ayash, הייתה בתולה אחת. There was one girl, single girl. בתולה is a single. Yeah. גדולה. בנוי, בת איש עשיר. She was a very beautiful woman. She was the daughter of a wealthy man. חכמה בתורה הרבה. She was very wise in Torah study. ושוקדת יומם ולילה לימוד תורה. And she would spend her days and nights studying Torah. וקפצו עליה בני אדם רבים ונכבדים, and many people jumped on her. What do you mean jumped on her?
Asked her questions.
They were, what do they call, suitors. They were courting her. They tried to get her to marry them. והיא לא רצתה בשום אופן להיות איש. And she absolutely did not want to be married to a man. Mitam ben Azai, she said she was like Rabbi Ben Azai. Nafsha chashka b'Torah. Her heart wished to be married to the Torah, not to another person. Remember the Shulchan Aruch said that if a man, his soul is like Ben Azai, then he feels that his life should be dedicated to the study of Torah, he's allowed to choose not to get married if he chooses to be married to the Torah. We read that Shulchan Aruch together.
But there was another guy who said he didn't want to get married because he knew he would have a very bad son. And,
Chizkiyahu, the king, and Yeshayahu, the prophet.
But Hashem said, but you have a responsibility to get married and to have a family.
Right.
So why is it okay for these people?
He wasn't avoiding marriage because he didn't want to have a child. He was avoiding marriage because he just wanted to study Torah. It's a difficult concept in halakha to even wrap your head around. How can you, because of one mitzvah, choose to neglect another mitzvah? It's a whole different story. So a woman does not have an obligation to get married in halakha.
Okay.
The obligation of pruruvu, be fruitful and multiply, is a mitzvah on a man. Which is why you're all big children here. If it ever comes to a halachic question about birth control and things like that, right? But the poskim understand pruruvu. The act of pruruvu is on the man and not on the woman. So if there ever has to be a situation that person's not healthy, whatever it would be that would come out, the poskim would always prefer that a woman would be the one who has some kind of contraceptive device over a man, because the man is actively doing his mitzvah and she's just the one who's avoiding it, which is a loophole through the rings of halakha. So a man must actively get married. A woman, it's funny because the pressure in the Jewish community is always on the girl to get married. Like, you're an old maid, you're not getting married. But the truth is that halachically, it's quite the contrary. So she might even have a better case than Ben Azai. She doesn't have an obligation of pruruvu, but she's saying, my soul desired to study Torah. Vikbol aleha avia lifnei hagaon anal, and her father went to complain about her to Rabbi Ayash. Veishlach achreha veidaber al liba dvarim tovim, and the rabbi came and spoke to her nice words. Velo avta lishmoa lo mikal v'chomer miben azai shehu ish umetzuveh al pri arvia ve'im kol zeh amar u'ma aseh v'nafshi chashka b'Torah. She said, listen, I know Talmud. Ben Azai was a man. He was obligated to get married, but he didn't have to because he wanted to study Torah. How much more so? V'kol sheken, me, sheina mitzvah b'fer arvia. I don't have an obligation to get married. So I'm a woman, I decide to study Torah, leave me alone. You're living in a country. Harav Peretz told me that his grandmother didn't leave the house with her face uncovered. In a country where women were not, forget like studying Torah. The discussion of women rabbis wasn't a discussion. This is Algeria of who knows how many 100 years ago, and she decides she wants to be a Torah scholar. You're living like in a tribal mentality. The Jews weren't doing honor killings, but the next door neighbors were. This wasn't suitable for the kind of environment she was living in. ויאמר הרב, הלא גם בתלמוד תורה אינה מצווה ואין לה שכר, מצווה ואין לה שכר. Said also studying Torah, you're not obligated. So just like you're obligated not to get married, fine. But you're also not obligated to study Torah. V'tischak. What?
She does. It's not. I don't think it's true that she doesn't.
Oh, very good. She laughed at him. Vatomer lo, she said, כי נעלמו ממנו לשעה דברי הרמב"ם ז"ל. Said, Rabbi, I think you momentarily forgot the words of the Rambam. שגם האישה יש לה שכר לימוד. That also a woman has schar, reward for studying Torah. You see, she's having a halachic debate with the rabbi, the chief rabbi of Algeria. האומנם יהי רצון שיתקיימו דבריו שאמר שלא יהיה לה שום שכר, לא בעולם הזה ולא בעולם הבא. Said, but I pray that Hashem should not give me reward, not in this world and not in the next world. כי אינה עוסקת בתורה לציפוי שכר, רק לשם אהבה של תורה. She said, I'm not studying Torah to receive a reward. I'm studying Torah just because I want to study Torah. What would you do if you were the chief rabbi? This lady, she's not just, it's not a run-of-the-mill girl who wants to rebel. She's saying, I wish that the Rambam is incorrect and that I don't even receive a reward for studying. I don't want the reward. I just want to connect to Hashem. ויפעם הגאון מדברי אלו ויפטרה לשלום ברוב ברכות he was so impressed with her words that he let her go with abundant blessings. Vayomer le'avia hanachla. Hanachla, how do you say it? Hanachla. Your father said, leave her be. He said, tell the father, leave her be. La'asot ratzonah, let her do what she wishes. Ki bazet yeschuta nafisha lehagen al bnei ha'ir v'chanayah. Her merit will protect the people of this city. Let her study Torah. Leave her alone. Her merit will protect the city. The story's not over. You have all kinds of miracle stories about rabbis. Wait for this one. I'm sorry if I'm reading so much Hebrew, but I don't want to paraphrase such a story. Once this rabbi saw in his dream, there were bandits that came. There were these good for nothing thugs. They would travel from city to city with weapons and rape and pillage and murder, all kinds of things they would do. He saw that they were coming to this Jewish city to steal and to kill people. And he saw in his dream that this girl came out alone and she pulled out a sword. She was the only one standing against them. She pulled out a sword and she was able to kill all of them single-handedly. It was a great miracle for the people of the city. The rabbi was very worried about this whole dream. And he said that until he knows from Hashem what's going to happen to the city, he's going to sit and fast.
It's a dream?
It was a dream, but he knew the dream was telling him something about the future, so he sat down and he fasted. After 3 days, Belel Shabbat, on the Friday night, Ba Baleshet? What's this word? Baleshet, I guess, Le'ir Masfardim Der Chayam.
With an ayin?
No, Bet Lamed Shin Tav. Bandits, some kind of gangs,
It's a detective. Right. A balash is a detective.
Yeah, I know, obviously Balash in Hebrew is a detective. Here he's not referring to a detective came from, he said, gangsters, Cossacks, whatever you call it, foreign group. They came over the sea, Masfaradim Der Chayam, from Spain towards Morocco, or Algeria. V'Hashem b'chazdo hitir ruach sa'ara al hayam. And Hashem made a storm happen in the ocean. They all drowned, using words from the story of Egypt. So they all drowned in this ocean. He doesn't say Mitzrayim, he says Mitzarim. He says when the Jewish people were saved from this evil oppressors that were coming. And the rabbi realized that his dream was telling him the merit of this lady studying Torah was what protected the city. He said she was stayed this way, she was single and studying Torah until she was 60 years old. And she went up to Israel, she made Aliyah. She studied Torah until the day she died. In a ripe old age, when she was over 100 years old.
Wow. Is this a real story?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a
Who
parable.
was she?
He said he saw this in a handwritten manuscript from a rabbi in Algeria.
So did any of the Rabbanim actually accepted it as her, something that she got the benefit of studying the Torah, so they can allow other women to do the same as well? I mean, who says that only men get zchuyot and women don't get zchuyot?
No, everybody agrees that everyone gets zchuyot.
Okay.
But the question is, so if we had to boil down the roles in the Jewish world, so traditionally men do X and women do Y, especially in this kind of traditional society. So the fact that you find Rabbi Yosef Masas, he's not just saying, it's okay for ladies to study Torah. He's not even saying what Rabbi Soloveitchik or the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, which is, anyways they're exposed to secular wisdom, so you might as well teach them Torah. In what way is Rabbi Yosef Masas speaking?
He's talking about a very specific kind of woman.
A person, but how is he speaking about her? He's not tolerating her.
No, he's encouraging her.
He's admiring her. He's putting her on this pedestal.
But she's a very unusual, very special soul.
Yeah. That kind of thing gets you in big trouble in the rabbinic world. Somebody would have told Rabbi Yosef Masas, it would be better for you if you just kept it in a handwritten manuscript somewhere.
But I think it's not right. Everybody to tell everybody else.
So did he. That's why he put it in a book.
Exactly.
But Bruria was before her, and she was also a great Talmud Chacham. Rabbi Meir's wife.
Bruria had a tragic end that I don't know they ever tell you about.
No, what was the ending?
Yeah, the Talmud says.
What was the ending?
Bruria
committed suicide?
Bria committed suicide.
Why?
Why?
She made a mistake in her judgment when speaking to the rabbis, and she realized that she did a certain avera, and push came to shove, the same place of holiness that she had reached caused her downfall.
Really?
That's incredible.
And it's not a lesson to tell you that Bria is bad, but rather, when blazing trails in uncharted territory, you have no precedent on what to rely, and you have to be very careful with the steps that you take. You see, when you send your child to a high school that your 3 older children went to, you already know what to expect. When you send your first child there to high school, you don't trust blindly. You have to every detail to plan out, to think about. College is the same way. I'm giving an example from day-to-day life. When you're blazing a trail, you have to do it very carefully. Bria blazed the trail, and we see that she had no one. There was no precedent to her. She didn't have someone she could look up to and say, "Oh, she also did what I did, and I didn't make that mistake." Now let's leave the story where it is. So Bria definitely is a model of Jewish woman scholarship, but it had a tragic end, which is probably what made people uncomfortable about the story.
It's amazing somebody at her level. She knows you don't do that, and she did it.
Okay, I wouldn't judge her until I was in her place, and I hope to never be there.
Well, you can't judge anyone.
Really?
You have no right to judge anyone.
Look, people do it all the time.
You can't judge. You have no right to judge. You don't know how that person felt at that time. You cannot do that. It's unfair.
But I wasn't judging her. I was just commenting.
Can I tell you one more Rabbi Yosef Masas story, or should we move into the
I'm
class?
very
Yeah, I
fascinated.
can tell you.
I'm
Okay.
fascinated.
It says, "On Mesupar Sham." It said in the same manuscript I found, Rabbi Yosef Masas says, "Kigam betalmesan." What happened to these manuscripts? Do you know? These manuscripts. What happened to them?
What happened to the manuscripts? They probably...
buried somewhere?
No, some rabbi had them.
A few different levels of what happened to the manuscripts. The first and foremost, the non-Jews in every country in which we lived thought it was funny to burn down libraries, Jewish libraries.
Oh, that wasn't fun.
They were not people of the book. You have to know that we were a very rare people. We were persecuted and we were humiliated and despised. We weren't allowed to go to schools. We didn't work in professional jobs, but we never stopped writing and learning and reading and educating. And we had these massive libraries. He writes in his books, Otzara Mechtavim, so I would go to this city in Morocco, this city in Algeria, this city, and I would find tremendous libraries. He said manuscripts that are 500, 600 years old, written on animal parchment, all kinds of things. He said that one day these bandits would come to the town and just light the whole place on fire.
Yes.
He said the second, there were unfortunately, when you write things happen. Water damage, sometimes there were storms and libraries entirely were flooded. Sometimes you had fires that just somebody left their food on the stove and the whole house went down. The synagogue got burned down. Accidents. And there was a third, more deliberate attempt. I probably shouldn't share this, but it's a true detail. There were Jews, in Morocco specifically, it was Jews who were affiliated with the Reform movement. In Yemen, it was Jews affiliated with the Hasidic movement, who came to these towns.
Rearranging your kitchen.
Hanan, you have to imagine this. You come to a town, and the people, who was left in Morocco in the 60s? Paul, like the Jews here, she would tell you, like very simple Jews
Very
that
simple, poor.
they didn't get with the program that we're supposed to leave.
That's right.
My grandfather, I once asked him, Saba, what do you think about the Jews left in Yemen? He said, it's their fault. He said, I have no pity on this. He said, we all came in 1948, and whoever stayed, it's their fault, whatever happens to them.
They missed the boat.
There were Jews that took advantage of the situation. And they would, after the rabbis had moved to Israel, had moved to Canada, had moved to France, they swooped in onto these Jewries, and they said, oh, that's a really nice Torah scroll, but look how old it is. Why don't we get you a new one from Israel? They would get them some $20,000 Torah scroll, and take this 500-year-old Torah scroll, and sell it to a museum.
That's right.
And make $100,000 of it. Or they would take these manuscripts and sell them in private collections, in auctions in New York, or in Tel Aviv, or wherever they had, what I'm talking, this style. Thousands of libraries were lost at the hands of I don't know what you call them, but other Jews who came to steal from their brethren.
Thieves. They knew what they were doing.
Sure.
Absolutely, they knew what they were doing.
And these Jews were very simple. They didn't understand. It's an old. You're right. It's an old book. Why should I? I was looking for something online, a book from Tunisia. I was looking for, and I came across a Torah scroll from there, written on deer parchment. And you think, how does some guy get it on eBay?
What?
It must have been such a story. But some person went to such a on eBay. It makes you wonder, like, I'm scared at night to think.
Is it legit?
Yeah, sure. It must have been that place. Either it was like a very wealthy person who wanted to one-up the Torah scroll and had it on deer skin, or there were more deer where he lived and there were cows, and that was the style of writing Torah scrolls. It's kosher to write on the deer skin. I saw a Torah in my own eyes in Jerusalem that a sofer had bought from such a place. A Sefer Torah written in Germany. Before Rabbi Yosef Karo formalized today the Torah scroll, they're all written in the same columns, the same words, the same. But before that, you could have a very short Torah scroll if you made big columns that were very wide. I saw a Torah scroll from Germany. Instead of the average, column being this big, it was this big. You never seen the whole parsha fits on one page. Tiny letters. The crowns, according to German halakha, were in different letters than the way we had. And I saw this book, and I was 350 years old. And he found it by chance. He found it somewhere online. He got his hands on it. It happened to so many communities. So if it wasn't for him writing these things down, I saw in this library, I saw in this book, imagine what we lost. He says, Gam betel Mesan, aita betula yafad maod. He said also in Tel Mesan, he was Algerian, he was a rabbi in Tel Mesan. There was a very beautiful, she was a virgin, she was a young girl. Asher nafsha chashka b'Torah. That her soul also wanted to study Torah. V'horei hayu aniyim mudim umtupalim bevanim uvanot. What does that mean? Umtupalim bevanim uvanot? They were blessed with abundant children. They were busy. She had very poor children, very poor parents, and they had many children. There was one widower who came from Waharan, and he was a very wealthy man. Very wealthy. He was a young guy. He wasn't like a 90-year-old widower. He was a young guy. They were looking for a spouse. He said he spoke to the father of this girl. Just give me her as a wife. We'll go on a date. Something. It's a good shidduch. I heard good things about your daughter. That he will give a dowry and all kinds of beautiful things to the family. Said, I will support your family for the rest of your life. I will take care of you. I'll take care of the rest of the children. I'm a wealthy guy. Let me take care of everybody. My grandmother, Aleh Shalom. My grandmother, Aleh Shalom, was 15 years old. My grandfather, Aleh Shalom, was 30 years old. And he was a very holy man. He was a big tzaddik. He was a horse trader. Imagine today would be like a car dealer, but who owns the cars? Not like the guy, the middleman who sells them to you. Very wealthy man.
Camel trader. Yes.
My grandmother's family lived up in the Berber mountains. They're shlochim from Morocco. They were in the outback. They weren't living in the big cities. They lived in a community called Agoyim, which traditionally is a community of people that came from the kingdom of David. And the Moroccan Jewry considered that when the temple would be rebuilt, they had kept these families alive in order to be the kings of the Jewish people back in Jerusalem. My grandmother's tradition was she had a family tree that she was from the family of King David.
Wow.
There are many Ashkenazi Jews, by the way, who can. I have a doctor that I knew that had a family tree on his wall from him all the way to King David.
I have that, but I don't have it in writing.
Okay, so there are many such people.
Yes, we are.
My friend has a smicha certificate from his rabbi until Moshe Rabbeinu. It has all the names on it.
Wow.
We have such things in the Jewish world, unbroken chains. So this man, it was a wealthy man, his name was Yaakov Biton. He was traveling through the town, and he heard about this girl. Interestingly enough, her name was Chana Biton, but they were not related to each other. And he decided he wanted to court her. And there was a very wealthy guy. It was like a big deal. The wealthy guy comes to town. He's a horse trader. He's also a Torah scholar. It's a big deal. You know, who comes to some mountain on a hilltop in Morocco. And so they told her she should go sit with him. She sat with him. And after their initial meeting, I don't know, 10 minutes, I don't know how long they give people to talk. Wow. And she sat with him, and after she went to her parents, I don't want to marry him. I really don't want to marry him. I don't want to marry him. He's too old. It's not good looking enough for me. It's like, you're being picky. What chutzpah you have? This is what kind of? It's not a 21st century over here. This is the hilltop in Morocco. And to my grandfather's credit, he spent a long, long time coming back and buying her presents and taking her out and whatever he did, and they ended up getting married. Baruch Hashem, and she was so close to him that when he passed away before I was born. And she passed away only a few years ago. She refused to even talk to another man because he was the soulmate that she had met. She didn't want to look at another man. Wasn't
I
interested.
saw a picture of her, you know where? And who's got a picture of her?
Paulette.
Besides Paulette.
Denise, man.
Denise.
In the store, sure.
I
It's
saw
her daughter. What?
Yes.
Right.
So I saw the pictures of her. Denise showed them to me just recently when I was there.
So if you want to know between the sisters of the Biton family where the stubbornness comes from,
Oh, I
it's
know.
an entire inheritance from the grandmother. Yeah. So it says here, he offered this big dowry. I'll marry you and I'll take care of your family. The parents were thrilled over the shidduch. That finally someone's going to save us. You pray your whole life. Let us win the lottery. Let us get a good job. Something to save our family. And this guy walks to your front door. They told her and she wasn't interested. She wanted to study Torah. They fell at her feet. Please, just marry her. What's going to happen to them? And they cried. And they were begging her. This is a classic Jewish story. What you hear about in Fiddler on the Roof or wherever you get your quality Jewish information from, that they would just arrange a marriage. According to halakha, you cannot marry two people who do not agree to be married to each other.
Correct.
You're not even allowed to marry a person you've never seen before. So this idea of like, we decided you'll get married on a certain day, it doesn't, that wedding is not a Jewish wedding. The code of Jewish law demands that you have to want it and that you have to know the person. To what extent is a different story. But that's why they're begging her. But they could have just forced her. No, it's an Arab country. They could have done whatever they wanted. But that's not how it worked. If you're not going to do it for yourself, at least do it for us. You could save the whole family, your brothers, your sisters, your parents were so old, whatever they told her.
That's a good reason to marry someone.
Very good.
And when she was unable to, she couldn't answer them anymore. She had no more excuses. ביקשה מהם זמן 3 ימים להתיישב בדבר, ואז חלפו ממנה. She asked to give me 3 days, leave me alone for 3 days, and they listened to her. והיא ענתה בצום נפשה, she fasted for 3 days. ותפק ותתחנן לפני המקום ברוך הוא, לפתוח שערי חנינה להוריה ממקום אחר. She prayed that Hashem, in the merit of my Torah study, open up for my parents the gates of mercy, but from a different place. Let not their blessing come from this man. Let it come from somewhere else. V'Hashem shama tfilatan. Hashem heard her prayer. V'ra'at dimata, and he saw her tears. Uvelel shlishi b'chatzi halayla, in the middle of the third night. V'ra'ata b'chaloma, she saw a dream. V'hine kol korela, and there was a voice calling out to her, le'emor, to tell her, hine osher rav tamun b'chek ha'adama asher at shochevet aleha. There's a treasure buried underneath the earth which you're sleeping. You're not living in a house with floors. There's dirt. So you just dig a little bit, you find whatever you want in there. V'takom be'od layla v'teged la'aviyah. She woke up in the middle of the night and she told her father. Listen to what kind of father she had. Sometimes in the poor, you find genuine people. Now another father would laugh at her dream. V'hu batach b'tzidkata. He trusted her righteousness. V'yavo kardom. He brought a ladder. Shovel. V'yachpor b'mkom mishkava omek shte amot, and he dug into the earth about 3 feet down. V'imtza kderat cherez gdola mila'ad dinarei zahav, and he found a big a clay vessel full of golden dinars, golden coins. V'ish lo yada, nobody knew. V'ismechu ma'od ma'od, and they were very happy. V'hi baboker, and it was the morning. V'yodia te'ish ki bito lo ratzta Ve'elech l'shamayim. He said that he told her, "I'm sorry, my daughter is not interested in this shidduch," and she went to peace. And the man left them alone. He took a little bit of the gold coins of the father. He did some business with it, and he was very successful. And he lived a life of joy and pleasure and serenity. And his daughter found the comfort to be able to sit and study Torah for the rest of her life. This is their portion in this world. And said this book, and I don't know in the next world how much reward she's going to get, how much more.
But she never got married.
Never. And this is what Rabbi Yosef adds, ועל זה הוסיף התנא הקדוש תיבת קול להרבות הנשים. So then that's why he wrote the word kol, everyone, to tell you that even if there's a woman in Jewish history who decides that she wants to dedicate her life to the study of Torah, she's included in this category of zocha l'dvarim harbeh, that she will merit many great things, like the Mishnah says. After when I read these things, you can't in Jewish, rabbinic literature is it's vast. It expresses just as many opinions as there are in any other place in the world. We have a right and a left, like everywhere has a right and a left. We have conservatives and liberals, like everywhere has conservative and liberals. We have traditionalists and progressives, like everywhere in the world has traditionalists and progressives. Our Torah, the beauty of it, is that nobody can come and tell you, I have a monopoly on the Torah. We, at our essence, are a non-establishment religion. Yes, we have a Torah we must adhere to. Everybody, though, agrees. We have prophets and writings we must agree to. Everyone agrees. We have a Talmud that we as a Jewish people collectively agreed to. We agree. After that, you don't have a right to impose your agenda on me. We have a basis we all stand on. After this, it's free game for anybody. And whereas I can't sit here and say, look, this is the real rabbi of the Jewish people, forget all the other opinions I told you about, the ones who said that it's a terrible thing for women to study Torah. I can't tell you. I'd be whitewashing Jewish history. But those people would also be whitewashing Jewish history if they neglected to mention this opinion. And when you see this, you say, I don't know, it could be that 200 years ago, that opinion was more correct. It worked for them. But maybe today, you shouldn't hold on to an opinion that is no longer relevant if you have one just as old. You can't just make up your own opinion. One that's just as old, just as antique, just as filled with HaShamayim, with fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as this opinion. And so here, by the person, she wants to study Torah. I'll never forget, I have a cousin. She went to seminary for a year, and her father said, okay, it's enough. Now come home and get married. She wanted to study for another year. And I fought with her father, Hashem Yishma, what I did to the man. I told her, I don't understand. She wants to study, your next kid, she's going to tell you, I want to be a drug addict. And you're going to wish you would have said she should study another year in seminary. That's going to be your problem. If she thinks she wants to study Torah for another year, let her study Torah for another year. And my cousin told me, women shouldn't be studying Torah like that. Now, he's not even that gung-ho. Don't think like he's some Baba Sali or something. He's just a guy. And we live in a world that's still like that.
Did he let her study for another year?
No.
She got married to a guy who lets her study for the rest of her life. So Hashem worked it out a different way.
So, what is the fear of the rabbis that a woman study Torah?
I don't think it's a fear of the rabbis. It's a fear of people. Tell me why in the United States of America, a lady still makes 76 cents per dollar than a man does.
Do we like light on or off? Off?
A man makes $20 an hour. A woman will make 76 cents on every dollar that he makes for doing the same job.
If you give that example, women only started working about what, 50 years
40
ago?
40.
No, but they're talking about equal work and equal pay. If a woman does the same job, she should make the same money.
Okay, but this kind of concept is kind of new. I mean, it's not even a century old. But you're looking at this concept of women studying Torah. Supposedly it's from Har Sinai, so it's 3,500 years old.
Were there women 300 years ago who worked?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, but
There are women who had either their husband died or they had they had to bake matzahs or whatever.
But it wasn't so mainstream like it is
Very
today.
good. The same thing with Torah learning. Of course, there were women who studied Torah for hundreds of years, but it's fairly recent, 40, 50 years, that women are actually sitting down and studying Torah.
But that's because it wasn't appropriate, or it wasn't.
Forget religiously, it was socially unacceptable.
Why? What is the fear of the rabbis?
It's not a fear. I'm telling you, it's not a fear of the rabbis. It's a fear of society at large.
Society is not acceptable.
Women
They
are
friend-
so
they friend-
Socially unacceptable. It was not just with Jews, not just with Jews.
So what is the reason that it was socially unacceptable?
Because men is
People believed that women were inferior creatures. That was a simple mentality of this world.
Or they needed protection and needed to be
Okay.
in the house.
Or the understanding was the male is the hunter and gatherer, and the woman is the being protected and nurtured.
But for
By not studying the best thing that ever happened to a Jewish person?
No, they always studied. Every Jewish lady kept Shabbat and kosher and sang Tehillim, but academic study, even men didn't do it. We talk about, the shtetl in Europe, full of rabbis and Rosh Yeshiva. Most people in the shtetl didn't know how to read the Siddur they prayed with in the morning.
Right.
It's a fact of life. They knew it by heart. They pretended. They mumbled the long words with the chazan.
So if you had somebody who wanted to study it, you against it?
If there was a man who wanted to study, it was only about 150 years old that a man could even go study in the yeshiva. Most people didn't, unless you were a son of a rabbi or a son of a wealthy man. Your education was in the dumps.
No, scholars were like elite society. It was not
It's a luxury.
Among men.
Even among men, so you can imagine among women. Yeah, man.
Yes, so can you
It
imagine?
was a different time. You didn't have all the communities we have today. Survival was very difficult. You had to do everything to wash, to sew, to cook, to grow, to harvest. It wasn't
Remember, we
like
spoke, the
today.
Ben
They
Ish
did not
Chai.
have time to
Very
do
good.
all
Last week,
that thing.
if you saw all the obligations that a lady had to do once upon a time, when in the world did you want her to study Torah also?
There wasn't so
The
much
only way
time.
she could have is if she had someone else doing all the work for her.
If she were very
Which was when
rich.
she was single, which was true. When girls were single, they did study with their parents. Yeah, they are single. And you're talking about girls got married 12, 13, not just in Sephardic countries. Everywhere.
Even men.
So yeah, men also. The Ashkenazi custom of not wearing a talit after the bar mitzvah. You know this custom. Ashkenazi Jews at the bar mitzvah don't wear a talit. It's not true. Ashkenazi Jews do. German Jews wear a talit at bar mitzvah. No. Every other group of Ashkenazi Jews, aside from the Germans, wait until marriage to wear a talit. So they put on tefillin at 13, but they don't wear a talit. Sephardic Jews, from the age of 6 or 7, kids are wearing talitot. At a bar mitzvah, for sure they're wearing a talit. The reason? A talit's an expensive thing. Who buys a talit? According to the Ashkenazi Jewish tradition, who buys the talit? The in-laws. The boys' in-laws.
Yes.
The rabbis say that he's getting married in a few months anyways. 13 years old, bar mitzvah. 14, he should be married already. So why spend the money now? Just give it a year. He'll wait. Today,
Another tradition.
So it's tradition.
very good. The Chavetz Chaim says, but today people are getting married. They're 25, they're 26, they're 30, they're 40. Says for 15 years you're not going to wear a talit. And that's why someone asked me, it's a good custom that Ashkenazi Jews today also should wear talit until 13. But just because you're not married, you're exempt from the mitzvah of wearing a talit. So think a little bit.
No, but they wait till
No, they don't.
No.
They don't.
I'll tell you when you see. No, I'll tell you when you see them wearing it. When the bar mitzvah boy will go up to bless the Torah, he's going to wear a talit. That's because everybody will wear it. But on a standard Shabbat morning, if you look into the men's section, anybody that's not married will not be wearing the prayer shawl, right?
I was in the synagogue. The Torah reader, he was maybe in his 50s. He had never gotten married. He was a rabbi. He was 50 years old. He never wore a talit in his life. I spoke with him. I said, I don't understand. Between you and me, you're waiting a long time already. What happened to the talit? I'm a single guy. It's our custom. Single men don't wear talitot. In the background, I'm hearing a fiddler on the roof playing tradition. The Chavetz Chaim was very angry about this. It's not a Sephardic rabbi or an agenda to make everybody Sephardic. I'm talking the Chavetz Chaim, the Ashkenazi rabbi in Poland, wanted people to wear talitot in their bar mitzvah.
Because we were talking about just before about education. If you even look 2 generations ago, 1 generation ago, the people who went to university were few and far between compared to what happens today. A woman who go to get her bachelor's degree 2 generations ago was very rare. Now everybody has one. It wasn't just in Jewish education, it was also in secular education that it was limited much more than it is
So what do you see today? The reason you're asking the questions you're asking are because you live in a social context where it's unheard of that women should not be as educated as men. But you are guilty of the same crime as the people 100 years ago. You are looking at the Torah from the lens of the society in which you live. When you come across an idea in the Torah, I'm sure every time you hear the word slave in the Torah, you cringe. Because you were raised in a free world. But the person who had slaves didn't think twice when it said the word. It was a way of life. People had slaves. It wasn't a question. When that principle was questioned, suddenly the people who were interpreting the Torah said, listen, they're right. They're right. The Torah was damage control. If you look at the laws of slaves in the Torah essentially did not promote the use of slaves. But the Torah said, if in the event you have a slave, this is the way you should treat them. You can't beat them, you can't break them, you can't, all kinds of things, like a human being. Which was light years ahead of where other people were. There's a beautiful book called Every Man a Slave, written by an author, Sender Zev. It was published about 10 years ago. He wrote a book about a Jewish slave owner in the southern states, in the time where slavery was legal in this country. And now his black slave and him were such good friends. And his slave ended up wanting to convert to Judaism. He converted to Judaism, and how he was persecuted by the white American community for having a relationship with his slave. Because a slave is 2/3 of a human being. He's not a real human being. And you see the difference between a Jewish slave owner down south, where you say, a Jewish guy shouldn't have a slave, but the freedom of spirit which he gave his worker, and the way that his counterparts on the other plantations had acted. Just reading that book alone will put into perspective. So of course, you come today, you almost skip the parts in the Torah that talk about slavery. You're just as guilty as a person 100 years ago who elaborated on the parts of the Torah that were slavery because of the society in which we live. So that being said,
shows that if you attach to Torah and not to the secular standards, that you will treat people with respect, which doesn't happen out in the secular world oftentimes.
It could, but it doesn't come as a mass ideal. There are individuals who are always good people.
But if the Torah says you treat your slave in a certain way, it's bringing up the point for a certain reason. And the reason, at least one reason, is even though the society you live in can be very awful, you have to hold to a higher standard because that's what the Torah tells you.
Yes.
That's what my grandfather used to say. And
I don't know if you know this, but according to Jewish law, when a Jewish man owned a non-Jewish slave, they were halfway a convert. I don't know if you know this idea. They were half converted to Judaism, meaning they were obligated in all the commandments of what you're not allowed to do. So they were not obligated to put on tefillin, they were not obligated to keep Shabbat, but they were obligated not to violate Shabbat. All the lotas, everything that says don't do this, the slave who was non-Jewish was obligated on that. They did the first step of conversion. And at the end of a slave's tenure as a slave, they would be able to choose, do I wish to, after spending this much time with a Jew, do I wish to join the Jewish people as a full-fledged member of society? That was always an option that was presented to a person at the end of their, and the hope was that in that time of relationship, the person would realize how much better it was for him to be living with Jews than it was somewhere else. And very often you do find many stories. Rabbi Yonatan Halevy had a slave, a famous Tevi, and it's a question how you pronounce his name, who was quoted off throughout the Talmud. He was a slave, non-Jewish slave of Rabbi Yonatan Halevy.
Wow.
We learn a lot of halachot from him. Things that he said, listen, I remember that my rabbi did X, Y, and Z. You're a slave, you're not even Jewish. Yeah, but listen, I converted with him. I can tell you what he taught me. That being said, we now have to ask the real question. And the question is, so we now agree that ladies can study Torah. Yeah, I hope you agree with me. If that's okay, yeah? We even agree that it's a positive thing. Yeah? We even agree that it doesn't have to be limited to very basic Jewish concepts, but even the most advanced of concepts can be studied by ladies. I hope we're all on that page. The question is, now let's cross the line. Can a lady be a rabbi? And before you answer this question, ask me a different question.
Sorry?
Ask you what?
Ask me a different question.
Does she need to be a rabbi?
That's a good question. It's not the one I want you to ask.
A lady is not obligated in all the mitzvot that a man has, so how can she really represent?
Is this a
the
statement or a question?
It's a statement.
Statement. Ask me a question.
Well, if she's not obligated,
Then how can she?
then how can she represent the community as a rabbi?
Does a rabbi have to represent the community?
Well, you first have to
Well, he should be.
define what you mean by a rabbi, and then we'll understand if
What
women
is
can be or
a
not.
rabbi?
A rabbi is somebody who's got
A leader.
So
Someone want to write this down? I want to write down the titles. Okay.
Okay.
A rabbi is someone who has smicha, ordination. Let's go one at a time. I want Marlene to write them down.
Somebody who teaches.
he teaches.
Okay.
Yes.
Your teacher.
There's someone who teaches Torah. Okay. What else?
He's a leader.
A leader. In what regard?
Of a community.
Of a community. Okay. What else does a rabbi do?
He
A spiritual guide.
he also makes sure that the people who are poor in his community are not seen as poor and nobody knows that they're
Okay,
poor.
on a societal level, he's like a social worker.
He's
He
a
takes
social
care of
activist.
people,
Taking care of
of the downtrodden. I wish all rabbis had that job description. Yeah. You know, I was once at a wedding, I'll never forget, here in San Diego, and I was sitting next to a certain man, a good friend of my family, and the rabbi was coming around to shake everybody's hand, and this man said, "Rabbi, you don't have to shake my hand, I don't have any money." And when I heard that, my heart it like came out of my chest. And you know what? The rabbi didn't shake his hand. Because the rabbi was hunting for a donor for some kind of event.
Okay, so
And can I tell you that I wouldn't lie to you if I told you that someone asked me, like, so-and-so, they donate to the synagogue. I said, I don't know, I don't deal with donations. Rachel probably knows, you ask her. Marlene gets checks in the mail. I don't know who donates and doesn't donate. I didn't even know who. I once thought a person was very wealthy. They're always donating. Then one day they came to ask me for tzedakah. I said, are you serious? Yeah, when they had, they gave. When they didn't have, they didn't give. And the truth is that it's not. There's no reason why a rabbi should look at a person. Oh, you're wealthy. I'm going to hang out with you. And the other one, forget about you. But unfortunately, this happens a lot because a rabbi is today also a fundraiser and a businessman.
He's a fundraiser.
I hope that's not on the list of.
Actually, a rabbi is a businessman. Also, yes.
Yeah, because you want to write. It's a negative thing as a
absolutely,
businessman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I don't want
If
to
he
do
takes control over the finances, at least
He's
he should be
involved.
a
Well, is that really in the job description, or did it become? And is it a good
Well, I
thing?
know.
It's not a job description. But if
I don't either.
If he does, he should know how to do it.
Okay, so let's write it. Businessman fundraiser.
Rabbis that are that take this privilege.
What else do rabbis do?
They do funerals and weddings.
The money,
Okay, so they officiate at life cycle
ceremonies.
events.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
I'm just trying to think what else. I'm just thinking of Rabbi Frank.
Does the rabbi ever lead services?
Kiruv, they do
Yeah.
Kiruv.
Okay, does he? Is it part of his job to be a chazan or read the Torah?
I heard in Israel it's not actually.
So okay, right. Some lead services. What did you say? Kiruv, you said?
I said
Oh, you said they're involved in Jewish outreach.
He's also involved in the Jewish judicial branch. That's part of his
It's
job.
amazing that we got like 10 definitions down and no one has yet said this. He's supposed to be a decisor of Jewish law.
Right.
Right. Make you a rabbi.
Rabbi Moshe Isserler says that if a rabbi is not trained in, I'm not a posek. I don't deal with these questions. You ever had that a rabbi tell you that?
Yes.
Yes.
The Ramah says it's better to hire a chazan than it is a rabbi like that, because he's not truly a scholar.
Yeah, but
To be a scholar.
most rabbi we know
To be a Torah scholar.
has only a money.
That
But we only have one posek in this town.
No.
And we don't have one here in San Diego.
Mommy.
They say that there is no posek in San Diego. The posek is in LA.
Well,
But that's the big deal.
No,
No,
that's
he means-
different.
it's true. In their circles, I know exactly what you're talking. Please don't mention names.
I promise I won't give you any names.
In their circles, none of them are qualified to render a halakhic decision. It's true.
Exactly.
The only one who is in Los Angeles.
Yes.
But
he's only
it's
for a
not
certain
true for rabbis. It's almost a joke. So if you're a rabbi who can't render halakhic decisions, so what are you?
It's kind of like you're a doctor, but you can't prescribe nor diagnose.
Like it couldn't. Listen, I'll tell you.
To me many times.
What happens is the following. You
That's
have
what we call you a
rabbis.
consultant, not
That's a
doctor.
good question. The reason I brought all these books, what do rabbis study in order to be rabbis, is a good question. But one second, there are rabbis like myself. Someone will tell me, Rabbi, I have a question here. Okay, I can answer you. I have a question on this. I can answer you. I have a question on that. I'm not a specialist in that area of Jewish law. I have to call Jerusalem. I have to call Rabbi Peretz. I have to send you to LA or whatever it would be. That's normal. Doctors do the same thing. I'm not a specialist in hearts, and I'm a specialist in this and that and the third thing. I'm an ear, nose, and throat
But if
doctor.
you have to refer everything out to your referral
Oh, very good.
agents.
But the one who says, listen, I could weigh you, I could take your blood pressure, and I could tell you to undress and put on the robe. That's called a nurse, not a doctor.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a difference. It's not the same thing. And so, a decisive of Jewish law, most would have told me that that's the first job of a rabbi.
Right.
But you, very interesting. We talk about societal norms. You are familiar with a North American rabbi
Yes.
whose main job is not to decide Jewish law.
Correct.
Tell me why.
Who's deciding Jewish law if they don't?
Well, tell me why his job is not.
I can say it in Hebrew. Shtika, it's like how do you say? Like it's the expectation is lower
Okay,
level
so
of expectation.
it's-
This is a BA and this is a master's degree. So if I want to hire someone, I would hire someone who has a master's degree,
Right.
PhD. I wouldn't hire someone if I have the option.
Very good. But let's ask you this.
But today, in many areas, it's a lower level of
Rabbinate.
not just rabbinate in many things. I mean, you don't.
Can I say what you're saying in a different term?
Yeah.
Have you ever applied for a job and they tell you're overqualified?
Yes.
Right.
What does that mean, overqualified? Aside from they don't want to pay the salary you deserve, what does overqualified mean?
It means that you
We don't want to be
We cannot
threatened by you.
retrain you.
We don't want to be threatened by you.
Yeah, it also means we don't have a need for your expertise.
Yes.
Understand? We don't have a need for your expertise. Yeah, you got a bachelor's in this, but you're already a PhD in something else. We don't deal with that issue. How many rabbis today? It's a North American problem. I don't know it's a problem, it's a reality. An Israeli rabbi is very different. If you would ask an Israeli what is a rabbi, that's not the list they would give you. In North America, you're dealing with rabbis who most often lead congregations which do not live a halachically observant lifestyle.
Correct.
And so his first job is not to decide halachic law, because very few people are coming to ask him questions on halakha. Many more people are coming to him to teach their kids for the bar mitzvah. Many more people are coming for them to get married. Many more people are coming for spiritual guidance in their marriage, at work, whatever it would be with raising their kids. Very few people are actually coming to them to say, hey, Rabbi, I didn't salt my chicken properly. Or, Rabbi, I want to heat up this kind of food on Shabbat. Am I allowed to do it? Half the people are not keeping kosher, the other half are not keeping Shabbat, or the other half are not wearing tefillin, or whatever it would be. So the role of a North American rabbi is actually, it's a new role. It's something that we've not really had before. It's perhaps one of the first times in Jewish history where the criteria to be a rabbi is very different. What they need, what the community needs from a rabbi.
Are you cheating those communities?
No.
You could say you're cheating them
Not
of a real
necessarily.
leader,
The
or you could
community's
say,
not looking for such leadership.
let me ask you, what happens when they
I
send
would say
you?
you're imposing a leader that we never asked for.
I'm like 2 minutes overtime, so let me just summarize.
Oh,
If
you
the
didn't even-
community would send you, if they're in Jerusalem, they would send you some rabbi. I don't know, he's the next Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. And he's sitting in some place where nobody cares about Jewish, they're uninspired to even come to synagogue. They would probably have been better off sending some young, charismatic, social activist rabbi with a good political platform and something. That's what they're looking for. The question is that truly a rabbi?
No.
In order to understand, can a lady be a rabbi or not? And next week we're going to study both sides of this debate, from the open Orthodox / modern Orthodox angles, and the other half of modern Orthodoxy and ultra Orthodoxy. Yes and no. You're going to see that they refuse and they fail time and time again to define their terms. One's talking about this kind of rabbi, and the other one's talking about that kind of rabbi. We as Jews have not yet differentiated between the different kinds of rabbis. Like you said, there's no posek in San Diego. You're severely incorrect. Very much so. But it's not your fault. It's not your fault, because that's what's being said on the street. This is a problem that affects all of Jewish society. And if a person says, listen, if the rabbi has to be able to read from the Torah, and a lady doesn't read from the Torah, okay, so you already answered my question. Does a rabbi can be a lady? Okay, can't if she needs to read from the Torah. But if being a rabbi is a spiritual guide, and they have to be a person who's a social worker, well, why not hire the rabbanit? She's probably much better. She's studying to be a social worker. She's almost done with her master's degree. She's going on to a PhD, and she's a much better spiritual guide than I am. So perhaps she would be the proper candidate for rabbi in North American Jewry. And that's where the confusion begins. If the rabbi is a social activist, I don't know, maybe Hillary Clinton could be the rabbi. I'm kidding, guys. I said that the idea is that if you change the term of rabbi, you also are going to change who is able to fit that role of rabbi, the criteria for rabbi. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll do that next week. All of these books are going to have to go away. God willing, till next week.